One-term Congressman Joe Walsh recently set out a number of tweets talking about what MLK would be in favor of and what he would be against in today's society. Now, the one-term Illinois congressman and current conservative radio broadcaster tweeted out the following. He said Martin Luther King Jr. would not approve of Black Lives Matter. Dr. King was about bringing people together. He would say all lives matter. You know, the last part of that is actually right. Martin Luther King Jr. would believe that all lives matter. But again, you're detracting. You are trying to distract people from a very specific issue that we're trying to address in the country. The reason why Black Lives Matter came about in the first place is because they are disproportionately targeted by officials, okay? Whether it's through stop and frisk, policies like that, or through, I don't know, cops shooting unarmed individuals that haven't really done anything wrong. So again, Joe Walsh is playing into that conservative narrative, indicating that, hey, you know what? These Black Lives Matter protesters don't really care about all lives matter. They just care about themselves. No, they just care about addressing an issue that's been impacting them for decades.
Yeah. And again, he's going to be one of the people who has seen the refutation of that. If a person is shot and they're unarmed, and this happens over and over and over again, and they do the investigations and nothing ever comes of it, then whether an individual cop or an individual radio personality believes that Black lives don't matter, whether that's true or not, clearly the outcome shows that they do not matter as much to the system. And that's why the system needs to change. And that's why you had a good analogy with the pink ribbon and saying, well, then why are you focusing on that? All cancer's bad. But that doesn't even go far enough, because everybody knows that breast cancer is bad. It would be like if there was a cancer that killed tons of people, but nobody ever talked about it or cared about it. And then you were to like say, oh, toe cancer, and they're like, fuck that, that's irrelevant. No, it kills people. And the fact that he pretends like he doesn't understand that. There's so many terms like that, white privilege. You keep explaining what it actually means, and they don't accept it because they don't want to accept it.
So Joe Walsh is the Donald Trump light, because he's late to the game. Donald Trump learned early in his career that you say something outrageous, you get press, free press, and then when people start asking you to answer for your outrageous statement, you say something even more outrageous.
Yes.
And so Donald Trump has learned that, and he plays the press like a fiddle. And now Joe Walsh is trying to do that, and he gets attention, because the only time he gets attention is when he says stuff like this, because he doesn't ever say anything smart that's worth repeating. So it's only when he says crazy stuff like this, and some jagoff who owns a radio station in Chicago gave him a show, because that guy who owns that station is really rich and he doesn't give a fuck about the people. It's probably a corporation. It's probably Clear Channel.
So let me give you some more from Joe Walsh, okay? And he did get some criticism, and he responded to that criticism. So he continues with, MLK Jr. was all about the content of our character, not the color of our skin. Okay, Black Lives Matter is only about skin color. He also says, in fact, if he were alive today, Martin Luther King Jr. would lead an All Lives Matter march on Washington, D.C. Would be wonderful. Okay, so at that point, people criticized him, and they're like, okay, you just don't want to address the real issue here at all, and you want to make it seem like these protesters don't care about other lives, or, you know, you get the point. And he responds back with, never fails. Every MLK day, you get some black folk telling white folk they can't comment on MLK and race because they're white. Bull, grow up.
No, but that's the thing. There are all sorts of comments you could make that the African American community would welcome, even from white people, allies that are trying to make positive changes to the system. Just when you can't get away with saying racist shit, oh, now my rights are being infringed. I want to why can't I say the N-word, huh? Why can't I say it? They don't understand that when they say those things, it's like, oh, this is a shortcut. You're a racist. I don't need to think about it. You're clearly a racist.
I was wondering how Martin Luther King would react to the Black Lives Matter, and I was like, I guess we'll never know unless we ask Joe Walsh.
Yeah, good point. I mean,
exactly.
Joe Walsh is very intuitive. You know, he would know what Martin Luther King Jr.
He's got his finger on the pulse, and I also would like to know what Chief Sitting Bull would think about the Redskins team name. I bet you Joe Walsh knows that.
Right.
Probably,
right.
yeah.
I bet he knows a lot of things about a lot of different cultures.
He does seem very well-rounded. All right, so he also continues on with even more offensive tweets. He says, if MLK were with us today, he'd say, quit whining. We've made amazing racial progress. You'll never know the racism that I knew. Celebrate that.
And then you just hear a snap of a bullet. Because I don't know if you remember, Joe, they fucking shot him dead because he was black. that guy who said, there's no more racism in your head, that you just created this story where MLK says there's no racism anymore. He also got shot right after he said that.
And you put that in the context of all the other civil rights leaders who were assassinated, all the civil rights volunteers and workers who went to the South and were killed, who were lynched, who were killed just while trying to do their job. And then it wasn't investigated because the authorities in that area didn't want it to be investigated. Just gloss over all that.
I'm sure if Martin Luther King was alive, what are the chances the one guy who could have told us racism isn't real anymore was fucking killed by a racist? What are the chances?
Weird. So
really weird.
Crazy world.
I feel like, look, they don't want to acknowledge institutional racism. They don't want to acknowledge things like, I don't know, black men are incarcerated at higher rates for possession of marijuana compared to white individuals who, by the way, possess and smoke it at similar rates. They don't want to address the insane statistics that came out of New York during the stop and frisk policies and how something like 90% of the people that were stopped and frisked were minorities, and they didn't find any weapons on them or drugs on them. It's all about targeting specific individuals from specific backgrounds. They don't want to acknowledge those things. Are things different today compared to how they were when MLK was alive? Obviously, okay? Segregation is not legal anymore, even though it does happen in some ways when it comes to socioeconomic status and separating people in terms of schooling. Absolutely. Yeah. But that institutional racism is still there, and it needs to be addressed. If you don't want to address it, then you just want to completely deny that racism exists. You want to deny your own privilege, and I think that's obvious from his tweets. But to sit there and tell black people to be complacent and to be happy with the situation they're in now, while their children are being shot and killed by police officials when they have no weapons and they haven't done anything wrong, I don't know. I feel like that's going above and beyond in terms of you being racist.
I think we got to be careful. I agree with everything you're saying. Mm-hmm. I just don't want to give Joe Walsh too much of our breath. I don't want to sit here and get worked up over Joe Walsh because I know it's going to make him get because he's irrelevant.
Don't worry. At 5 minutes from now, I'll forget he exists.
Okay.
Yeah, he's irrelevant. I think it's important to mention him. He is irrelevant, absolutely. But he represents a group of people in this country that continuously deny that racism exists. And they help fuel that fire.
He's doing it for money. He's doing it because he knows it'll get him attention and all the racist Trump voters will come listen to his show. It's just for money. He knows, he actually does know better. He just does this.
Yeah. But there's a good and a bad side to acknowledging that he and people like him are out on radio doing this. I mean, the bad side is there are tons of people that on their drive to work and their drive home or whatever they're driving trucks, they hear BS like this. But the good side is that he is broadcasting on radio, which is a format that makes cable news look innovative and full of life.